So guys, I got my first big solar panels. I got them a little bit ago, and somebody else who bought these same BP solar panels is going to take his to Africa, to Gambia, and hopefully run a school with them. So he needs some help understanding how exactly to wire everything up. And I think he's off to a good start. But I figured instead of me just saying it really quickly whenever I met him or sending him a quick reply in an email, I should make a video talking about it. It's a bit windy out here, forgive me. So, these are 175 watt BP solar panels. Okay, the blue marker's gone. I have a whole dry erase easel, but I can't find my markers anywhere. So we have four 175 watt BP 24 volt panels, and these are about from 2009 or so, and I would say we can probably expect 150 watts from them, but for the price we paid for them, it's definitely worth that. Each one of these cost about as much as half of a 100 watt panel new, so I'm definitely fine with this. But he also got some batteries that he asked me about. I think he paid $300 each for those. They're new lead acid batteries. Lead acid isn't quite as good of an option, but it's good for starting out. He got 12 of them, but he hasn't paid for all of them yet. So I told him that, well, you might want to wait on that and maybe just go with 6 for now, because, well, like, lithium ion batteries are getting easier to find now, and you can get them from old electric cars and stuff like that, and they last a lot longer. And the biggest issue is that lead acid, 60% of the power you put into it is just wasted. You lose like 40% charging it, and then you lose 40% coming out. You just don't get much of the power coming into it. So you need to have almost twice as many solar panels to run a lead acid system. And it's just not a good idea. But the good things about lead acid is that it's not hard to charge. You can just charge a lead acid battery by just connecting the panels directly to the batteries. You can just do that and you'll get an okay result. And hopefully it won't overcharge it. If you need to, you could probably use a car regulator, like the regulator for an alternator. But they sell charge controllers, and I have quite a few of them. And since these are 24 volt panels, that'll work really good because you won't need as thick of wiring, and the power will be a little easier to handle. So in that case, you have the charge controller feeding the power into the batteries. And because he started with 4 of these, most charge controllers can handle like about 600 watts or so. So he should be able to get just probably a pretty cheap power controller. Now there's 2 big options whenever it comes to power charge controllers. There's PWM and there's MPPT. PWM throws away a little bit of power, but they're also really cheap. MPPT actually finds a way to make all that power fit into the batteries, and they're a little bit more expensive because usually they have to have a big power transformer in them. And here's the biggest issue. There are a lot of fake listings where they're actually just a cheap PWM, but they say they're MPPT. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to find good MPPT charge controllers. But here's the thing. When poor little kids are involved, they deserve air conditioning. So probably what I would recommend is, for now, when he gets all this stuff over to Africa, go with a cheap PWM controller, and it can always act as a good backup as well. But then later on, keep an eye out for an MPPT controller, because an MPPT controller could then help you get like maybe 20 or 30% more power from your solar panels. So that could be an upgrade in the future. And especially since I think you can get PWM controllers for like maybe $20 or so. So that might be a good way to go about it. And then someday in the future, you can upgrade to like a a lithium-ion battery pack and an MPPT charge controller and all that stuff, especially as that becomes easier to find. Now, what do you do with the power once you get it? Well, some of it I've started using directly. For instance, in this school, they're going to be having a whole bunch of Dell TC4400 laptops and, or no, HP TC4400 laptops. And if I remember right, those run off of like 17 volts. And he might want to actually, instead of having the charging brick, just run it directly off the DC, because this little laptop with the charging, the little charger, it's only like 85% efficient. That's why those charging bricks get so hot. It's because they waste power going from 120 volts to 18 volts or whatever. Well, instead you could just run it directly off a battery. And I've actually done this quite a bit. You can actually use less power just running your electronics directly off the battery. You just have to be more careful about having a little like voltage regulator, but they actually sell those online. So for something like this, I would recommend doing that. But here's the one thing that you definitely will need AC for: lights and an air conditioner. And if Africa is anything like what the United States is like, you're gonna need air conditioning, and you're especially gonna need air conditioning to learn, because if you're just dealing with heat, you can't learn and you can't live your life. So they definitely need air conditioning. And it looks like they have like a mini split system, which is probably pretty nice. Now, those systems can use a lot of power, and I'm thinking that these panels will probably struggle to run one air conditioning unit. Well, no, let's see. 4 panels, 4 times 150 is 600 watts. And now let's say that they have a really good day where they get equivalent of 8 hours of sunlight. So it looks like these panels could maybe make 4.5 kilowatts a day. That's not too bad, especially whenever an air conditioning unit, you know, when it first starts out, it'll be taking like 3,000 watts, but that's only for a few seconds. Then usually they come down to like 700 watts or something like that. So 4.8 divided by 0.7, well, that's like 6 hours. So oh hey, the air conditioner finally shut off. So I'm thinking that it would actually be, you'd be off to a good start. But there's one issue. A lot of inverters to turn DC power into AC to run the air conditioner, a lot of those, they can't quite handle an air conditioner. So you'll probably need a really beefy, like 3,000 watt inverter. Because, so we have the solar panels, we have the solar panel, we have the batteries, and we have the charge controller. But now that's gonna have to go to an inverter. That inverter is going to take the 24 volts DC and convert it to what wall power is. Now, you have to watch out though, because inverters have 2 types. Well, actually there's 3 types, but there's pure sine wave and non-pure sine wave. The cheaper inverters don't have pure sine wave, and the signal has a lot of noise in it because it's easier to make it that way. But a lot of electronics do not like any noise in the power. And so, especially for running laptops and an air conditioner and lights at a school, because like if you have a cheap inverter, the lights might flicker, the AC unit might have issues, and the laptops might actually, the power supplies might get killed by that if you're running them from the AC. And so what I would recommend is get a pure sine wave inverter. The costs of pure sine wave inverters have come down a lot. So you'll want a pure sine wave inverter. And unfortunately, for an air conditioning unit, you'll probably want it to be pretty beefy as well. Something like 3,000 watts. Because if I understand right, I think there's 2 air conditioners. There might be more. There's lights, there's laptops, and you're definitely going to want to get something big. And that might be several $100s. But when you build something right, sometimes you got to get something nice. And I think, well, I wish I had more experience with these big inverters. I have experience with like 1500 watt inverters, and I can run power tools off them and such. I have one that I believe is 2500 watts, and it has difficulty starting motors and stuff. So I really hope, see, the secret ingredient with this is if your air conditioning unit is a DC inverter technology, has DC inverter written on it, well then it's going to be no issue, because those slowly start. The issue is whenever the air conditioner decides to turn on the compressor, it has a whole bunch of power that it takes, and it will just knock out any inverter, sometimes killing them. And so what you want is either a DC inverter air conditioner, which are kind of hard to find, or they make little circuits that you put in series with the motor or something with the air conditioner compressor, and they allow it to slowly start. And so I've seen people do this with a lot of motors and lathes and stuff like that, but especially air conditioners, where it'll stop it from taking too much power for that 1 or 2 seconds, and it'll more slowly start it up, and then it won't brown out your inverter and pop your breaker or anything like that. So that's another option too. I don't know how hard that would be, but they do make circuits that you can slowly start an air conditioner with, and then it can work with an inverter. It's not, I don't see a whole lot of people doing that, but people definitely do it for whenever they're like living in a van or whatever. Let's see. So then we have the inverter, and that powers like the wall outlets, so you can have wall power going to various things. But I think that a better option would be to use that DC power directly, and basically take that and power the laptops directly with it, because a lot of times you can actually get away with a lot more efficiency if you just run the things directly off of the DC, as long as the voltages are close enough. And so yeah, I'm recommending that you use these panels with like a hybrid approach. Maybe you get like a cheap PWM charge controller for now, with the hopes to upgrade it later. And you take your batteries, which are a pretty good amount. It's, I believe he's gonna have either 4 or 6, because he was gonna get 12, but I said, well, lead acids are a little bit, they waste a lot of power, and I couldn't really recommend getting a whole bunch of those, especially for such a high price. So those batteries, if I remember right, 12 volts, 200 amp hours. That's quite a lot. So if we have the amp hours figured out, 12 times 200, yeah, 2400. 2400 watt hours, or 2.4 kilowatt hours, which you could probably get away with just 4 of those batteries, and that would be more than enough to use the power from these panels. I think I should probably make a whole series about this, and maybe I'm not just like doing it all quick and in the sun and stuff, but I just wanted to get that information out there, because that's like the basics of it, and a few little smart pointers. And I'm hoping that maybe I should make a better series over on my Renault's Big Projects channel, and actually make a authentic Solar Sunday talk with this. And maybe I'll get some dry erase markers so I can actually use my easel instead of a darn solar panel. Although I do like the effect of using the solar panel. Oh well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I really want to help Ibrahim make this school work, because there's no reason why you can't use solar panels to run a school, especially when it's so straightforward and there's so much good junk for sale in the US. Like, these panels were so cheap compared to when they were new, and it gives me a lot of hope. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video, and thank you very much for watching. See ya.